Hello there, my name's Shane Johnson, and today on Active Tuts we're going to be discussing Molehill. Now, for those of you that don't know, and for those of you that have been living under a rock for the last 6 months, Molehill is the code name for a new feature that's going to be enabled in a future release of the Flash Player, which will enable content within the Flash Player to be rendered on the GPU rather than on the CPU as it is at the moment. I'm sure most of you know that Flash gets quite a lot of bad press due to its lagging experience, due to the fact that all of the content is rendered via the CPU, which of course is the central processing unit within your computer. A lot of the content is still going to be rendered on the CPU. There's going to be the actual traditional display list, as we know it will still be rendered on the CPU, but there's going to be a new layer within the Flash Player, which will be rendered on the GPU. Which of course is the graphics card. Now this enables a true 3D experience to be enjoyed by everybody that's got the Flash Player, and it's a really exciting feature for us as developers. Now the actual API is very low level. It's based on it targets OpenGL on Mac OS X. It targets DirectX on Windows, and on mobile devices, as was recently demoed, it targets OpenGL ES2. Now, if anybody has ever coded any OpenGL type of stuff, it's pretty heavy. I know that most people that do it actually really enjoy it, but yeah, it's pretty heavy stuff, and it's not the type of thing that most of us mere mortals would want to be doing on a daily basis. So thankfully, because the Adobe Flash team have released beta versions of the Molehill and incubator technologies, thankfully a lot of the people out there that are building 3D frameworks for the traditional Flash Player have been able to leverage the power of Molehill to be able to update their frameworks so that it targets the actual GPU accelerated part of the APIs. So there are people like Awais 3D, Alternative with 3D, Yogurt 3D, Flare 3D, all of these people. Now today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a very small application, just a kind of an example on using Awais 3D to target Flash Player 11. So here we are on the Adobe Labs page. Okay, so the very first thing you really want to do is you want to make sure that you've got Flash Player 11 so you can actually view the content within your web page. So here on the Adobe Labs page, we're able to download the Flash Player incubator. So let's click on that. Okay, and that takes us to the download page, which will enable us to be able to either download our ActiveX for Internet Explorer or the plugin version for all the other browsers out there. So I take it most of you are going to be downloading the plugin version. Okay, so once this is installed on your computer and installed for your browser version, you'll be able to then go to examples and you'll be able to view certain examples. Let's take this. So look, this Awais 3D shallow water demo. At the moment, a lot of the demos that you see take a little while to load as they start up. You'll notice that down in the bottom right hand corner, it actually says, got a watermark there which says which version of the Flash Player is. So you'll know that when it says that you've got Flash Player 11, well actually when you just see this, you'll know that it's the correct version of the Flash Player. And as you can see, this is the stuff that's become available within the Flash Player, thanks to GPU hardware acceleration. It's just absolutely unbelievable. So let's get ourselves set up and started so we can start building content that can target Flash Player 11, so we can start building some really good 3D stuff. So the first thing we need to do is to be able to make sure that they're going to have a player global that's going to be able to compile and help us compile to Flash Player 11. So here we are again on the Adobe Labs pages, and they've put together a page which explains nicely about how to get stuff put together so that you can actually target Flash Player 11. So you've downloaded your Flash Player, so you've got that installed on your browser. Next thing you need to do is to actually download the playerglobal.swc or SWC that's built for Flash Player 11. So if you click here, straight away, as you can see, we're downloading the Flash Player 11 SWC. Okay, and we also need to make sure that we've got an up-to-date version of the Flex SDK. So the version that they recommend here to use is the build 19786, but I think that's slightly out of date now, and the version of the SDK actually on the page here. The version of the SDK that's available is actually 20967. So we can go ahead and we can download that. Now I've already downloaded this, and I've got that available on my downloads page here. So you can see I've already downloaded the Flex SDK 4.5.20967. Okay, so what we want to do with that now, that zip file, we want to extract that and we want to put that into a folder wherever we have our ActionScript class files, our SDKs and stuff like that. So what I've got here is in my documents, I've got libraries, ActionScript files, Flex SDKs, and I've got a folder that I've created called Molehill, and within that I've got that version of the Flex SDK. Okay, so it's just extracted exactly as you would any other SDK. Now what we're looking for in here is we want to go into the frameworks folder. Okay, we want to go to libs, and we want to go to the player version. Okay, now at the moment it's got a 10.2 version in there, it's the latest Flash player, and we've got that player global SWC in there. Now what you can do is you could take this downloaded Flash player here, drop it into 10.2, and it's there available. But what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it 11.0, and we're going to open that up, and in there we're going to put our new SWC. I'm just going to rename this so that it's labeled correctly, Player Global. And so there we are. That's our Flex SDK ready to go to target Flash Player 11. Now, what we're going to need to do within our IDE to be able to build 3D content, of course, is we're going to need to as well download the newest 4.0 version of the Away3D library. So you can go to the downloads page on away3d.com. And you can see here that we've got the sources available for the Flash 11 version of Away3D 4. So I've already got that installed on my computer. Let's have a look here. Let's go back to my SDKs, class files. I've got 3D. No, actually, I've put it in Molehill APIs, 3D. And it's there available Away3D. Okay, so once you've downloaded it, it's not a huge file. I know that sometimes I've downloaded some Away3D libraries and it's got all the old versions in there and stuff. This one's actually pretty small. It's about 915 kilobytes. So it's pretty small, less than a megabyte. Download it. You've got a lib folder in there that's actually got Joe Ebert's apparatus in there. And then you've got all your source files for Away3D. So now that we've downloaded everything we need, let's set up our IDE so that we can compile and build SWFs to target Flash Player 11. One thing I forgot to mention actually is that the Flash Player team, whilst putting together this page and explaining how to be able to compile your applications to target Flash Player 11, as they've also outlined a nice step-by-step procedure on how to target it in various IDEs. Now, the IDE we're going to be using today is FDT. There's a very similar setup to Flash Builder, except some of these settings here, which are outlined at the beginning of this particular part where it says if you're using the Adobe Flex SDK. But pretty much from point 3 onwards, it's very similar to what we're going to be using in FDT. But also they've nicely outlined how to set up your environment if you're using the Adobe Flash Professional IDE rather than the development environment. So whether you're using a development IDE or you're using the traditional IDE, it's been explained nice and straightforwardly how to make sure that you're able to compile your applications to target Flash Player 11 from wherever you're using. And again, if you're using Flash Develop, then of course the setup's going to be very similar to what's going on here, where it says about using the Adobe Flex SDK. Anyway, so let's get into FTT, and let's get ourselves set up so that we're able to compile and build applications to target Flash Player 11. So the first thing we need to do is to set up our newly built SDK. So let's go into our preferences here in FTT, and we're going to add a new SDK. So let's find the path to our particular SDK. It's a library, libraries, select SDKs, a Molehill, and then the SDKs inside there. Okay. And let's click OK. Okay, and so it's had a look in there and it's found everything. The one thing we want to look at is to make sure that there we go, that it's found that 11 version of the Flash Player Switch. Let's just call this Molehill. And click OK. And so there you can see we've got Molehill set up as an SDK. So let's go in and start up and create our first project. So we're going to call this, let's just call it Active Model. Okay, it's a web application, and it's going to be turned in pure AS3. Now, because there's no standalone Flash player available yet for this particular version of the Flash player, there's only the plugin browser versions. We've got no choice but to only be able to test this particular version in an HTML wrapper or within a browser in a HTML page. Thankfully, in FTT, they've recently set up a new option to be able to include a HTML wrapper. By default, it's available in Flash Builder. I haven't used Flash Developer, so I don't know if that's something that's available. So here we decided to include our HTML wrapper. Let's go next. Now we're going to target our Molehill. As you can see, the Flash Player version here is 11. And let's go on to next. Now there's just one little thing we need to do here. If you go into the SDK library, you'll see that the Flex SWIC isn't compatible with our particular player global. So we don't need that. We don't need anything to do with the Flex framework. So let's remove that particular SWIC and let's finish. Okay, we just need to add a couple more little bits here. So let's go and do new linked resource. Let's go add, and we need to set up, if you're using FTT, then you'll be able to set up a new linked library to target Away 3D4. I've already got it set up here, so I'm just going to click OK. And also, as part of Away 3D4, some parts of it use the Apparat decoder. So I've already got that set up here, so we're going to use Apparat. And then we just click OK. And that's it. That's our development environment set up and ready to go. So let's go in and open up the main class file and use this to start creating our very first part of our application. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just make sure this is that this stage equals stage scale mode scale stage dot line equals stage line. Oops, typo. Top left. Okay, so let's just create our init function. Okay, so we've just set up the beginning of our class. Let's get in and create our 3D environment. So let's just say view equals view 3D. So those of you that have used Away 3D before, this is very, very similar to the old traditional way of using Away 3D. You set up a view, you set up a scene, you set up your lights, your cameras. It's almost the same as using the older versions of Away 3D. It's really, really great. So there are a few other little bits that are a bit different. We're going to use an anti-alias on our view, just to make sure that it's all rendered nice and smoothly. And we're just going to do add child view, so that at least our view is actually added to the stage. I'm just going to, what we're going to do here is we're going to create a cube with a very simple material, just as a demo of getting something actually on the screen. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly add a couple of lights. Okay, we're going to give this a point light, give it an X, 500, give it a Y, 500, and we're going to give it a Z of minus 500. Okay, and then we're just going to, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add our lights for that particular light. Child. You remember in an older version it used to be add light. Here we're just going to do child. And then we're just going to add our loop listener. And let's add our mesh. Let's add a mesh. So let's create a function to add our mesh. Okay, let's create our loop. Okay, so we've got our loop listener created, and all we're going to do in our enter frame listener is we're going to do a view.render. Oops. Okay, so let's create our mesh. Like I said, all we're going to do here is we're going to create just a cube. So let's go var box. Let's create a cube equals new cube. Okay, we need to create a material. So let's go var mat. At the moment, we're just going to do a nice simple color material. Equals new color material. And we're just going to give it a color of, let's give it like a nice purple color. Okay, and we also need to change a couple of settings in order to make it the shadows and reflectiveness and the specular look really nice. Let's give it an ambient equals 0.3. Let's give it a specular equals 0.5, which is kind of shiny-ish. We're just going to skip it for lights equals, and this is an array. So we have to encase it in square brackets. So our particular cube, we're going to we need to put in a few variables here. We need to put in the material and the height, width, and depth, and the segments and stuff. So let's create our mat as our first part of the variable. Let's give it a width of 100, height of 100, depth of 100. That'll do for now. We don't really need to start worrying about segments and stuff like that. And then we're just going to say let's do view dot scene add child, and we're going to call our box. I'll tell you what we're going to do here. Let's just go box. We can actually create this so that it's available within another function. So all I did then was a quick fix, Control-1, and then created the variable at the top there. And in our, let's put this here actually outside of our mesh. Oops. So what we're going to do is create our box and then add the loop listener. So at least then our box is available to manipulate, and we're just going to give it a yaw of 2. Okay, which basically means that it's going to rotate at a variable of 2 every single frame. So really simple, as you can see. There's what 63 lines of code there, and that should basically pretty much get an object displayed on the screen. So let's do our run configurations and create a run configuration for this. Let's just go new. Okay, our main.swift. We've got our start. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to open it in a browser. Index.html. Okay, apply. Now, we're not going to run it yet. There's one other little bit that we need to do to make sure that we're able to compile this to a Flash Player 11. If you have a look in the Labs little bit, it does tell you here that you need to be able to add a compiler argument, and the compiler argument tells us this bit here. We have to tell it to target Swift version number 13, and this ensures the output in Swift targets Swift version 13, which of course is Flash Player 11. Complicated, confusing, but hey. So let's just go right click on here. Let's go to properties, which is just off the screen. You can't quite see it. And then let's add some compiler arguments for our application. Equals 13. Okay, so now let's just go to configurations and let's just go run. Fingers crossed, this should launch in the browser. Okay, we've got nothing displayed on the screen at the moment. Okay, so let's have a look. That, by the way, sorry, that's actually sitting in the browser. This is the final thing that we're going to be building at the end of this particular tutorial. So let's just have a look and see what's going on here. Box. Have you seen the box? Okay, so let's have a look. What's missing? Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do here. Let's just let's add some stats. Let's put some stats in it so we can at least see stats up here. So we're going to create a function here. Let's just add some stats so we can see what's going on the stage. So let's just say equals new. This actually comes as part of the Way 3D package. Stats. Just want that up here. Let's make it here right at the top. Child. Okay. So let's see this. Oops. So I've clicked debug. Okay, so we've got it here. No view, no polys. Okay, so no view. Okay. And let's try that now. So at least there's a view added to the stats. Okay, so we've got 12 polygons. So there's a cube there somewhere. There's something added. Yeah? Which means that at least it's added. Okay, right, I can see. Speed equals. Okay, let's try that now. Okay, there you go. So we've got a very simple 3D scene. We've got a spinning cube. It's a very, very simple object. But at least we know that our environment is set up to be able to create 3D applications targeting Flash Player 11. So in the next section, I'll show you how to start manipulating 3D models using Blender 3D, and then start getting some nice complex objects into our Way 3D application. Actually, just before I finish this part, this would be a good stage for me to point out how one simple little thing that we need to do to enable the browser to have direct access to the GPU. So here in our HTML wrapper, as you can see, I'm embedding my Swift file via Swift object, and we just need to add a window mode parameter. So we're just going to have params.wmode equals direct, and again, this just gives us direct access to the GPU. So in a simple application like this, you're not going to notice any major difference, but when you start adding higher poly meshes to your applications, you're going to notice a considerable increase in your frames per second through gaining such direct access to the GPU.